Doha welcomed the world with a spectacular opening ceremony as the starting gun to the 17th IAAF World Championships went off at the all-purpose Khalifa International Stadium in Qatar. Kenya's Ruth Chepngetich then braved punishing heat to ignite the African party by delivering their first gold medal for the continent during the first ever marathon held at midnight. Well, in tonight's match point, we go deep into the heart of Kenya to sample how Africa celebrated a new sporting hero. Hello, welcome to your weekly sports program that brings you all the sporting news and reviews from an African perspective. We will highlight the thrill of victory while also showing you the agony of defeat. I'm Richard Nta in Nairobi. This is Match Point. Let's get real, let's get live, let's get at it. Here's what's coming up in the show. Springbok fans in Johannesburg cheer South Africa's 57-3 Rugby World Cup victory over Namibia. And Ferrari's Leclerc emulates Schumacher with fourth pole in a row in Russia. Well, we start with the 2019 IAAF World Championships that got underway in Doha on Friday. Kenya celebrated the first gold medal of Doha 2019 when Ruth Chepngetich won the historic first midnight marathon early Saturday morning. CGTN's Mohammed Abubakar recaps what was an exciting opening day at the Games in Qatar's capital.
A colorful ceremony opened up the 17th edition of the IAAF World Championships at the Khalifa International Stadium in Doha. With extreme heat conditions being the center of discussion throughout the build-up to this event, the stadium has been equipped with an air conditioning system.
Well, the northern Kenyan town of Eldoret came alive on Friday night as hundreds tuned in for the women's marathon final of the Doha 2019 IAAF World Championships. Now, over 2.5 hours later, the self-styled City of Champions, whose hinterland produces world-class distance running talent, erupted after homegirl Ruth Chepngetich delivered Team Kenya's first gold. Here is CGTN's Wilkeston Yabwa with more.
Athletics events are a huge deal in Kenya, with Eldoret located some 320 kilometers from Nairobi, the epicenter, since the northern town produces a majority of the country's elite athletes. And when it is a world championship, the locals turn up in their numbers to watch and cheer their countrymen and women on.
Well, we are pleased to be joined by Martin Kano, a sports consultant and former professional athlete here in studio, and of course our very own CGTN correspondent and reporter Mohammed Abubakar in Doha. We'll start with you, Mohammed. Great to see you. Mohammed, how did the athletes react to the first ever midnight marathon? How did that go down, Mohammed?
All right, thank you, Richard. Well, the heat definitely was one of the worries going into these games, and even the crew the CGTN crew here had to take some few days to get used to this heat. So the heat was one of the worries, and going into the games, or rather the marathon, the reason for this race being staged at night was because of the favorable temperatures at the night or during the night time in Doha. The temperatures are in the lower 30s as opposed to the daytime where it's in the 40s. So and you know the IAAF did not want to scrap off the marathons in this particular event, so this was more of like a litmus test to see if it was possible to have a marathon at or rather during the hot season here in Doha. So the fact that athletes come all the way for this stage to be able to push the limits and to carry their flags high, it was possible for the marathon runners to run the marathon. Of course, a third of the runners did not finish the marathon, but you also have to look at the two-thirds who managed to finish. Yes, they did say it was a tough marathon to run, but we have to look at the two-thirds that managed to finish, and it was a success according to the local organizers. The ones who did not finish the race were rightly taken care of by the medical services here.
All right, Mohammed, great stuff. Don't go away. We'll be right back with you with one more question. And let me turn to Martin Kano. Martin Kano, this next question is for you. You are a former professional athlete, 1,500 meters, top 10 athlete. You know exactly how it feels for an athlete to perform in hot conditions. What is it that we don't know about such extreme weather conditions when an athlete performs?
Well, an athlete goes through a tremendous loss of fluids running in such heat, high weather. And you constantly have to focus and constantly have to drink more fluids to replace that. And you do lose a bit of focus in your racing when this happens in this kind of heat in Doha. So it's an uncomfortable situation for a lot of athletes because lots of preparation has to go into racing in heat such as this. It's not a good feeling at all.
All right, well, we'll get back to you also before we close. And it's right back to you, Mohammed. The first gold medal at the Doha 2019 went to Africa. What more can we expect from the best talent in track and field from the continent?
Well, for Africa, of course, there are a lot of hopes going into the long distance events where East Africans mainly are dominant in these events. So a lot of medals are expected with the East African countries. And as we're speaking, the 10,000 meter women's final is actually going on where Helen Obiri is leading the Kenyan team and Senberi Teferi as well leading the Ethiopian team. So lots of hopes there for medals for East Africans going into this race. And of course, we have the 100 meter final, the sprint will be mainly down to the South Africans and West Africans, but we have a representative, an African representative, a South African, Akani Simbine, who is the Commonwealth champion 2018 in the Gold Coast. He is standing a chance here to get a medal. Of course, he is facing a tough athlete in this particular final. Of course, he has recorded a season best of 9.93. He is just third behind the two favorites, of course, Justin Gatlin and Chris Coleman, the Americans. So a lot of hope again in tonight's 100 meter final for the sprints for Africa.
All right, Mohammed, we'll be right back to you to close. But Martin, you take my next question, which is a very important question. Many naturalized African athletes running for adopted nations on Friday night. Now, what threat does that pose to medal chances of their country of birth?
It does. As you saw last night, Chelimo from Bahrain finishing second in the women's marathon. It denied us a medal chance in, Edna Kiplagat finishing fourth from Kenya. Also, there's lots of naturalized athletes from Kenya who are competing for the U.S. who pose, a strong threat to Kenya's chances of winning medals and other countries as well. So it is a factor, in basically blocking the number of medals or reducing the number of chances Kenya has in winning medals. For example, in the 5,000 meters, the men's 5,000 meters, there are quite a number of stronger former Kenyans competing for other countries.
Do you see this as a trend that will continue?
I don't think it's a trend because I think it's now being managed. Kenyans would not just jump and run for another country immediately. There's a waiting period involved now in that. However, the fact that they are able to compete for another country, they're not there's not so much pressure, as it would be competing from Kenya here. So they have more resources, they have more support to further their chances of excelling in the sport to the highest level.
All right, let's leave it there. Martin Kano, thank you so much for your insight and analysis. Gentlemen, both Mohammed Abubakar and Martin Kano, thank you for joining us here on Matchpoint. Hope to speak to you again real soon. Moving on, Team South Africa is at Doha 2019 without stars Wade, Van Niekerk, and Caster Semenya. The medal hopes for that country that finished second in Africa and third overall at London 2017 now falls on the shoulders of a new crop of athletes. National women's 100-meter hurdles champion Reneke Steenkamp is one of the emerging South African hopefuls. CGTN CS Duplessis has more.
The 100-meter hurdles is one of the most unpredictable events in athletics. And the South African national record holder believes that because of that, it levels the playing field to a certain extent at her debut championships.
You're watching Match Point on CGTN. We've got a lot more for you after the break. Here's a look at what's ahead. Springbok fans in Johannesburg cheer South Africa to a 57-3 victory over Namibia. Welcome back. South Africa did not disappoint in their World Cup clash against Namibia in Japan. The Springboks cruised to a crushing 57-3 victory against their Southern African neighbors, who are ranked last in the tournament. CGTN's Julie Shire went along to catch some of the action at a fan park in Johannesburg.
South Africa wasted no time in shaking off last week's defeat against the All Blacks. The Springboks dismantled their neighbors Namibia 57-3 in an All-African World Cup clash.
Well, here's an interesting story for you. Japan might not have the best team competing at the Rugby World Cup, but when it comes to toilets, they are undoubtedly the best in the world. Let me explain. Rugby fans from around the globe currently in Japan are discovering the private world of washlets, toilets packed with technology. Forget the boring bogs found elsewhere in the world. The Japanese toilet is an altogether different experience. The name washlet actually refers to a line of toilet seats with a water spray cleansing function made by Japanese company Toto Limited. But the popularity of its signature product has made it the name for all bidets with a wide variety of high-tech functions. And we're not done just yet. We've got a lot more stories coming your way. Let's take a sneak peek. Still to come, Ferrari's Leclerc emulates Schumacher with fourth pole in a row in Russia. Welcome back to Newsnet. South Africa track queen Caster Semenya has signed for JVW Women's Football Club, reverberated across the world. The two-time Olympic and world middle distance champion is coming in at a time women's football in the country is enjoying immense growth. Now, clubs like JVW, started by national captain Yanni van Veek in 2012, are playing a major part in driving the growth of football for women. CGTN's C.S. Duplessis has more.
It's a lonely road being a pioneer in sport. Hours of training and dedication are required to carve a new path into the unknown.
And Charles Leclerc became the first Ferrari driver since Michael Schumacher to take 4 pole positions in a row in a Russian Grand Prix qualifying session that bridged the generations on Saturday. Formula One leader Lewis Hamilton joined Leclerc, who was, listen to this, 3 years old when Schumacher racked up 4 poles in a row in 2000 on the front row. The unfazed 21-year-old has now out-qualified 4-time world champion and teammate Sebastian Vettel, who starts in 3rd place for 9 successive races. Leclerc was not about to get carried away after his 6th pole of the season, ahead of the race won by Mercedes since it first appeared on the calendar in 2014. And to the English Premier League we go. Liverpool extended their perfect start to the season with a 7th successive Premier League victory, beating Sheffield 1-0 on Saturday. Homekeeper Dean Henderson fumbled Georginio Wijnaldum's 70th minute shot at Bramall Lane to gift the Reds victory. Elsewhere, Jorginho scored from the spot before Willian added a second in Chelsea's 2-0 victory over Brighton. 10-man Tottenham held on to a 2-1 victory over Southampton, and France midfielder Ndombele gave Spurs the lead before Serge Aurier was sent off after receiving his 2nd yellow for a foul on Ryan Bertrand. Keeper Hugo Lloris made a shocking blunder that allowed Danny Ings to level Harry Kane, then scored what proved to be the winner in the 43rd minute. Well, I guess that'll do it for this edition of Match Point. Remember, you can send us your feedback to the contacts on the screen and follow us on digital media platforms. Thanks for watching. We leave you with images of some of the sporting highlights this week.